Before we read this chapter, the para, this is the whole basis of the pessimistic theory. We'll do a small recapitulation because every week we lose the continuation. So, just to tell you what he's doing. The chapter is the knot of matter. Sri Aurobindo is now, from the last 7-8 chapters, he is busy establishing the connection between the highest and the lowest. This is a constant theme in him. If he cannot establish the highest and the lowest connection, then a divine life on earth is not possible. So he has to do that. So that's what he's doing. And he has told you the basic connections. Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Sat becomes matter. Chit Shakti becomes the prana, the vital. And Ananda becomes the psychic being. And the divine quaternary, he includes also the supermind as the divine quaternary. And the supermind becomes the human mind. But this becoming of the human mind is subject to certain laws. There is deformation and there is diminution and distortion. Okay? So, that which is it becomes an image. Just like take anything and its image. Take New York and its image. Okay? So, the world is an image of the divine. You can take it that way. Now, when you see an image, you have the right to say, it is something very temporary. I can tear the image and throw it away. That's what the aesthetists are saying. And Sri Aurobindo says, what you are saying is right. But behind the photograph also, behind the form, there is the divine reality lurking in the background, which you are not able to see at the second level. Go to the third level, you will see that reality in the physical world. This is what he is going to establish. So, having said that, he has established the connection between Sat and matter. He has established the connection supermind and mind first. Then Chit Shakti becomes the vital, the prana in the human being. And now he is dealing with matter. So, he is saying on the one hand that matter is nothing but Brahman. It is Sat. It is Sat. But in that case, if it is the same, why is the ascetic running away? Why is the ascetic saying, why is the Mayavada saying that this is absolutely not divine, it is undivine and we don't want to be here? Why is he saying that? Sri Aurobindo is examining the principles of matter and showing that there is some good reason why the ascetic is escaping. He doesn't agree with them fully, but he says, I can understand their problem. Okay? So, and he is saying this is a triple defect. And the matter has three things which are the opposite of the divine quaternary. Number one, ignorance. The divine has full knowledge. In matter, there is total ignorance. No knowledge of any sort at all. Number two, bondage. There is fixed laws that operate. No freedom at all. That's a bondage. Okay? So, he calls it inertia, the law of inertia. Doesn't allow you to move. You have to move according to, it's like a machine. The machine has no freedom. You operate it, it will do exactly what you have told it to do. So it is something mechanical, unconscious. That is bondage. The third is division. The divine is one. The Advaita philosophy probably is the only one in the world which says that there is only one ultimate reality. From top to bottom it is essentially the same. But there is division at the bottom. I told you just now that the correspondence between the one and the many, the highest and the lowest, there is a connection. But the connection is subject to certain laws. Deformation, diminution, okay, and also the one becoming the many, division. So, infinite number of atoms here, they seem to be different, but actually they are one. But you are seeing it as different because of your ignorance, because the law of ignorance operates. Okay, it's like you are standing in a hall of mirrors. Okay, there are 20 mirrors and you see 20 times yourself all over and you feel it is real. Okay, so but we don't see that that's only reflections. The division is seeming, it's not real. Okay, so this is what he has discussed. And now he says, now we'll read the para and then you will see what he is saying. The background is clear. So now we go to the... This is the whole basis of the pessimistic theory of the world. Optimist it may be, as to worlds and states beyond, but pessimistic as to the earthly life and the destiny of the mental being in his dealings with the material universe. For it affirms that since the very nature of material existence is division, and the very seed of embodied mind is self-limitation, ignorance and egoism, to seek satisfaction of the spirit upon earth, or to seek an issue and divine purpose and culmination for the world play, is a vanity and a delusion. Only in a heaven of the spirit, and not in the world, or only in the spirit's true quietude, and not in its phenomenal activities, can we reunite existence and consciousness with the divine self-delight. The infinite can only recover itself by rejecting as an error and false step its attempt to find itself in the finite. Nor can the emergence of the mental consciousness in the material universe bring with it any promise of a divine fulfillment. For the principle of division is not proper to matter, but to mind. Matter is only an illusion of mind into which mind brings its own rule of division and ignorance. Therefore, within this illusion, mind can only find itself. It can only travel between three terms of the divided existence it has created. It cannot find there the unity of the spirit or the truth of the spiritual existence. This whole paragraph, it is not Sri Aurobindo speaking. It is the ascetic's view that Sri Aurobindo is expressing, and he only refers to it in the beginning. And then you have to understand that Sri Aurobindo is not saying these things. This is, you have to be very, very careful. Every time he starts, it may be said, it can be considered, okay, or the pessimistic theory he is beginning with. So this is the pessimistic theory. If you read the last sentence, you will see Sri Aurobindo is saying this. It is not, okay? You have to be very, very clear. So this is the pessimistic theory. So what is the pessimistic theory? The pessimistic theory is, and who are the proponents of the pessimistic theory? Mayavada, the ascetic philosophy, okay? The Buddhistic philosophy, okay, then even Shankara in the ultimate analysis. Shankara admits that the physical world there is a divine presence here. Sarvam khalu idam brahman. He accepts the Upanishadic statements. Tat tvamasi, soham asmi. He accepts. In other words, the divine reality is here. But can you get the divine reality here in full while in the physical world? It is no. You have to go up there. It's implied, okay? So Sri Aurobindo says, ultimately you have to consider Shankara as also a Mayavadi. Ultimately. So it is very subtle, his philosophy. Sri Aurobindo praises him highly, okay? But he says that ultimately he is finding a division between us, the highest and the lowest. I am saying, Sri Aurobindo is saying there is no division at all. Essentially it is one. In form and characters it is different, but it is essentially one. Okay? So, this is the pessimistic theory. So, what's the pessimistic theory? In the physical world, it is impossible to find the divine. You have to go up. This is permanently a diminished and distorted state and is not going to change. It's a permanent distorted place. That's a pessimistic theory. Now, that's why the Westerners consider the Indian philosophy, Advaita and all, to be pessimistic. Okay? Sri Aurobindo now comes and twists it a little and says, wait. The pessimism is justified to a certain extent. But don't forget that there is a evolution on earth and one day it is going towards perfection. It's not permanently imperfect. It is temporarily imperfect. He admits that. So, the pessimistic theory of the world is this, that it is impossible to get the divine life on physical earth. You have to leave the physical world, reject it and go up.
So, regarding this word pessimism, so this very powerful line in Savitri is there, the adoration of the Divine Mother, only the everlasting no has neared.
Yeah.
But where is the lover's everlasting
yes? That's right.
So, it's simply a matter of that no and yes.
Yes. This is no and that is yes. Okay. In fact, Purusha and Prakriti, okay? So he says Purusha and Prakriti are always together. In one place he says the yes is always accompanied by limping no. So they are always together. But in matter, Purusha is hiding. It is so hidden that you can't see it. Okay? But if you go to the third level, you will see that the divine is there hiding in matter. Okay? So this is a pessimistic theory of the world. Optimistic it may be as to the worlds and states beyond. Okay? But pessimistic as to the earthly life and the destiny of the mental being in his dealings with the material universe. Mental being, man, has no chance of realizing the divine here. He has to necessarily reject body-mind life. He has to reject. Neti, neti, neti is the only method. Na iti, na iti, na iti. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the vital, I am pure consciousness. And he has to go there. He has to abandon this. Okay? So that's a pessimistic theory. Optimistic it may be. It's worthwhile mentioning here one thing, that the Westerners think that the Indian philosophy is pessimistic. Partly true. But Sri Aurobindo is now correcting that to say it is not even partly true. Okay? But whatever their optimism is there is pleasure in the physical world, but what if they are ignoring the other thing? Okay? So live life fully, but the divine life is not possible here, that they glide over. So you can be optimistic about it, but ultimately you have to be pessimistic. Okay? So
regarding this equating the Indian thought with pessimism, so Sri Aurobindo makes this observation that post-Buddhistic Hinduism is having this tinge, sort of.
Yeah.
But Indian culture does not begin near Buddhism. It is far older.
Absolutely.
And he says that the idea of, this is a phrase he uses in the Essays on the Gita, the divine perfectibility of man. This is very much there in the Veda.
Absolutely.
And they were fully optimistic.
Yes. So the words that Sri Aurobindo uses for what Anmol is saying, the earlier Vedanta, and he says the later Vedanta. The earlier Vedanta is the Vedic period. There they accept that the physical world is real and divine. Heaven is our father, earth is our mother. So they accept, okay? And the later Vedanta, he is dating it from Shankara's 8th century AD. Actually Shankara has been misinterpreted, but he is the one who has brought in the idea of Maya, okay? So this is the later Vedanta is the pessimistic one. And that Buddhism certainly contributed very much to it, okay? Because they considered it total unreality. But Shankara doesn't consider it total unreality. Okay?
In order to have a fair estimate of the Indian culture, it would be, binding on a person to study it fully.
Yes.
From the Vedic times till.
Yes.
On a partial study, you cannot pass such a judgment.
No, absolutely. And now that is exactly what Sri Aurobindo is doing. In one place he says, very interesting, he says, now what we will do is, we will take the old capital, he uses a very interesting image, he says, we'll take the old capital and reinvest it in new forms. He's using a commercial image. And we will use that and make new forms. And that's the integral view and the integral yoga. Okay? So I'm still at the... Optimistic it may be as to the worlds and states beyond, because it is possible to divinize yourself, but you have to leave the lower parts which are incorrigibly imperfect. Okay, so optimistic it may be as to worlds and states beyond, but pessimistic as to the earthly life and the destiny of the mental being in his dealings with the material universe. For it affirms. Now, what's the it? The pessimistic theory. Okay? So it affirms that since the very nature of material existence is division, and that he admits, Sri Aurobindo admits, and the very seed of embodied mind is self-limitation. Just now we said, the one and the many are connected by laws of division and limitation. So that is what he is saying. Okay? Ignorance and egoism, to seek satisfaction of the spirit upon earth, or to seek an issue and divine purpose and culmination for the world play, is a vanity and delusion. The world is a play, it's a drama being enacted. Okay? The denouement, the last climax has not yet come. Okay, so that is being played out. So the world play, to seek a happy ending is not possible, the pessimists are saying. The Sremdo is saying happy ending will come. It is there, waiting for the future. Okay, so it's a vanity and a delusion. Only in a heaven of the spirit and not in the world, activity and not in the world, or only in the spirit's true quietude and not in its phenomenal activities, can we reunite existence and consciousness with the divine self-delight. Now, this is very interesting, we'll look into it carefully. Heaven of the spirit, he says, or in the spirit's true quietude. Note that, okay? The division, the differences between the spirit and matter are many. One and many. Quietude, silence, static condition, dynamic condition. That's what he means by the phenomenal world. Phenomenon is that which is constantly changing, events in the physical world. That is noumenon, this is phenomenon. Okay? That is static, this is movement all the time. In fact, in the physical world there is nothing stable. You may feel that the Himalayas are stable. No. Even now we can see earthquakes are coming because of that. Yeah.
That's why it's called Jagat.
Yes.
That which is in motion.
Yeah, that's right. The first verse of the Isha Upanishad. Jagatyam Jagat. Okay, so. All right, so. So, seeking satisfaction of the spirit upon earth is to seek an issue and divine purpose and culmination in the world play is a vanity and delusion. Only in a heaven of the spirit and not in the world. Only in the spirit's true quietude and not in a phenomenal activity, in its phenomenal activities, can we reunite existence and consciousness and divine delight. In the physical world, you have to combine existence, consciousness and divine delight. Okay? You can't do it here. You have to do it there in Satchidananda. That's what he's saying. The infinite can only recover itself by rejecting as an error and a false step its attempt to find itself in the finite. The infinite can never find itself in the finite. The divine can never be found in the physical world. Nor can the emergence of mental consciousness in the material universe bring with it any promise of a divine fulfillment. For the principle of division is not proper to matter. He is explaining why. Because when does the division start? It starts at the mind level. If you want to go down to the absolute, the root of division, it is the overmind. So supermind has got total oneness, but it's also got the potentiality of the many. In fact, that is discussed in the chapter on the triple status of supermind. Okay? Triple status of supermind. Okay, let's give even one more step back. Satchidananda is unmanifest. The supermind is the power that manifests this Satchidananda. How does it manifest? It manifests it through making the subtle gross, making the one many, making the infinite finite, making the formless form. And you can compare it to a prism. Okay? The white light of Satchidananda hits the prism of the supermind and breaks up into 7 colors. Not 7 colors, 100,000 million infinite colors. And these are the forms. So supermind is the one that creates the world. Okay? And in supermind, it has got the capacity of total oneness as well as the potential many. Okay? So it's a very interesting chapter where he describes that supermind is the only one that has the capacity of both. Matter with its phenomenon and permanent activity can never become stable here. The Satchidananda, which is stable, can never become multiplicity unless the supermind is there. So it is supermind is the link between the two. So if you want to see the real truth of things, the true truth of things, rise to the supermind and don't get stuck at the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness. And the spiritual planes of consciousness are higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind. Even overmind is the origin of ignorance. It is that which makes the many. And you can define ignorance as seeing the many without seeing the oneness. You can say that. Okay? So, very clear. He is explaining to you what is this pessimistic theory.
He uses this sentence in the letters that because they stopped short at the overmind, that is why the spiritual effort of India culminated in Mayavad.
Yes, that's right. And not only overmind, even at the higher mind, it is possible to have reflections of the highest. Okay? Because it is not like a staircase. It's more like a ramp. There's a interpenetration, like the rainbow colors. They interpenetrate. So even if you are at the higher mind level, you can get glimpses of the overmind. You can get glimpses even of the sober mind. It's possible.
At higher mind.
Huh?
At higher mind.
Yes, even at the higher mind level, it is possible to get glimpses, but it's imperfect. You get a glimpse only, not the realization. Okay? So, that's what it is. Therefore, within this illusion, mind can only find itself. So, if you are stuck at the mind level, which includes the spiritual planes of consciousness, it cannot find a supermind. It will find only itself. You have to climb beyond that, within this mind, okay?
Missed 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Nor can the emergence.
Okay. Nor can the emergence of mental consciousness in the material universe bring with it any promise of a divine fulfillment. So, however high the mental consciousness goes in the material world, okay, it cannot have a divine fulfillment ever. Science is creating miracle after miracle, and we are going, a lot of things we are doing, becoming subtler and subtler in things, but it will never be divine fulfillment. That's what he's saying. Nor can the emergence of mental consciousness in the material universe bring with it any promise of divine fulfillment. I don't know if you people are following the YouTube videos, okay? Fantastic things are happening in the world. The near-death experience is becoming common. People are understanding that there is life beyond the physical, after death, okay? In fact, the other day I saw a video which said that in America itself, 2 million people, 2 million have had the experience of the near-death. Okay? So it's now quite a common idea, and many people are speaking that there is life after death. So that is one thing. Okay. Then children being born today, fantastic capacities. Okay. Then one of the indigo children, 8-year-old, 9-year-olds, poetry, mathematics, okay, memory power, unbelievable things are going on. So, after all, it is more than 50 years now, na? Yes. No, it's just about 50 years or more. 56.
55. Since 1956?
56, yeah, Supermind descended 1956.
55 years.
55 years.
No, 65 years.
Oh.
65 years.
So it is taking shape now. It is revealing itself. The miracles. But note interestingly also that there is also confusion. Because when you go from one level to another level, there is always a disturbance which happens. So suppose you have got rules in a certain institution. You introduce new rules, immediately there will be problems. People will object. That's what our democracy is. India is the best example. The moment you try to bring in laws, there will be 100,000 objections. Okay? So, therefore, within this illusion, mind can only find itself. It can only travel between the 3 terms of the divided existence it has created. So what are these 3 terms? Matter, life and mind. That's all. It cannot go beyond them. Okay? Cannot find there the unity of the spirit or the truth of the spiritual existence. So, this is what he's saying. Now to summarize what he's saying in this paragraph. Okay. Such is the resistance of matter to a spiritual life that it is very easy to conclude that God cannot be experienced permanently in the physical world. The consciousness clogged and trapped in the meshes of the physical, the perversity of the vital and the fixity of the mind cannot soar to spiritual heights. It must necessarily leave the outer nature of body, life, mind, and rejecting the physical world, find the infinite outside in the transcendent. This is the basis of the pessimism of many philosophies and yogic paths. The infinite cannot be attained while the consciousness is imprisoned in the finite body-mind life. This is what he's saying in short. So, we go to the next paragraph. Now, it is true that the principle of division in matter can be only a creation of the divided mind which has precipitated itself into material existence. For that material existence has no self-being, is not the original phenomenon, but only a form created by an all-dividing life force which works out the conceptions of an all-dividing mind. By working out being into these appearances of the ignorance, inertia and division of matter, the dividing mind has lost and imprisoned itself in a dungeon of its own building, is bound with chains which it has itself forged. And if it be true that the dividing mind is the first principle of creation, then it must be also the ultimate attainment possible in the creation. And the mental being, struggling vainly with life and matter, overpowering them only to be overpowered by them, repeating eternally a fruitless cycle, must be the last and highest word of cosmic existence. Again, it's not Sri Aurobindo speaking. Okay, so but no such consequence, now it is Sri Aurobindo speaking, but no such consequence ensues if, on the contrary, it is the immortal and infinite spirit that has veiled itself in the dense robe of material substance and works there by the supreme creative power of supermind, permitting the divisions of mind and the reign of the lowest or material principle only as initial conditions for a certain evolutionary play of the one in the many. If, in other words, it is not merely a mental being who is hidden in the forms of the universe, but the infinite being, knowledge, will, which emerges out of matter, first as life, then as mind, with the rest of it still unrevealed, then the emergence of consciousness out of the apparently inconscient must have another and completer term. The appearance of a supramental spiritual being who shall impose on his mental, vital, bodily workings a higher law than that of the dividing mind is no longer impossible. On the contrary, it is the natural and inevitable conclusion of the nature of cosmic existence. So now he is answering the pessimistic theory, he is answering. Okay. So, what is the origin of the pessimistic theory? When in spiritual consciousness a yogi attains to the second level. I speak often of, for clarity's sake, 3 levels. The first level is our normal condition, body, mind, life. Okay? There is the physical world. The second level is the spiritual planes of consciousness. Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, overmind. This you can call the second level. The third level is the supermind. Okay? The fourth level is the unmanifest super Satchidananda. So, if you get stuck at the physical world, you see everything, the many, and you think it is real, but you are in illusion, you are in delusion and illusion, both. Okay? So, if you rise in consciousness to the second level, okay, you get knowledge, you get peace, you get even sometimes ananda, you may have even liberation, okay? You will feel free, you will feel infinite. But it's not the ultimate reality. And when you are in the second level, you see the physical world as unreal. You see it as only forms, like a cinema. The Advaita philosophy gives the image of a reflection in the mirror. Okay? But today we can say the cinema is a better image. Because when you are seeing the physical world, and I think this is all real, it's very similar to your seeing a film on the screen. The screen is permanent. The images falling on the screen are what you are seeing in the physical world. And you identify yourself with them. That's the funny part. When you are watching a cinema, you are watching the images, and if there is a funny scene, you will laugh. Why? Because you are identifying yourself with them. If there is a sad scene, you will cry. Okay? So you are identifying yourself with the images and thinking this is real. But the images, when you go, when you are watching a film, you stand back and say, hey, wait. This is only images on a screen. Why am I doing all this? You have separated yourself from the images. That's the second level. Okay? There you see, these are only images. Then you see the screen, which is permanent. And that screen is the self. That is the existence, that is the Sat, which is infinite. The image of the screen is not good because it is limited. It's only a square. Take that screen, no border, it goes infinite up, infinite down, infinite side, right, left. And can you describe it? You can't. It is ineffable. It is featureless, immutable, infinite, eternal, but absolutely real. That screen is real. That's a self. That's a Brahman consciousness. And the images are being fallen on that, and you are identifying yourself with the images. Okay? So if you see the second level, pessimistic theory is bound to happen. Even Sri Aurobindo underwent that. Yes. Okay? When in Baroda he made his mind silent, he's seeing the physical world as images. The world is a shadow play of images only. Okay? So he's got that sonnet also.
Nirvana.
Yeah. Nirvana. Many sonnets are, 3-4 sonnets are there. All images only. But Sri Aurobindo being Sri Aurobindo says, wait. I can't accept this. How is it possible that God is cheating me? I was thinking everything is real. And now I realize that He has been cheating me all this time. God cannot have cheated me. It can't be. So there is another explanation. So I'll wait patiently. Okay? That's why He says in the Life Divine, when you make your mind silent and go to the self, there are 3 possibilities. 1, 90% that's what happens. You see the physical world as unreal. Images only. And you reject it. Or you see, if you are in the cosmic consciousness, that's also possible when you go there. The cosmic consciousness can happen in the self. Okay? Maybe it is rarer, but it can happen. Then you feel yourself identified with everything and the world is not unreal, it is real. That is a possibility in the self. And the third level, Sri Aurobindo's experience. Yes, I see the physical world as unreal, but I will not jump to conclusions. I will wait and see. Because I can't accept that I am being cheated. Okay, so I think Einstein also says something similar. God does not play with dice in the universe, he says. It's something similar. Okay, so this is what you are simply saying in this para. That if you stop at the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, right from higher mind up to overmind, even overmind, you will see the physical world as unreal. You are likely to see the physical world as unreal, and you will jump to the pessimistic conclusion. Please go to the supramental level. You will see that there is a connection between the higher and the lower. They are not unconnected. And you see also evolution. From matter has come out life, and life has come out mind. There is a progress very clearly. There is a teleology. There is a goal towards which it is going. And I can assert, here he will not say, but in letters he has said, I can assert that the supramental manifestation is decreed and it is bound to happen. So, that's the answer to the pessimistic theory. Okay? Yeah, we have to start from now. So, Sri Aurobindo is admitting that if you are at the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, this applies. Now, it is true that the principle of division in matter can only be a creation of the divided mind. So, the divided mind is seen at the spiritual level of consciousness up to the overmind. Okay? Which has precipitated itself. Note also interestingly mind with a M cap. Okay? So, which has precipitated itself into material existence. This word Sri Aurobindo uses are very interesting. Precipitated. Okay? Very interesting. It has oozed itself into matter. Okay? So, into materialism, for that material existence has no self-being, is not the original phenomenon, but only a form created by an all-dividing life force which works out the conceptions of an all-dividing mind. Now, this sentence is very interesting, but we'll first of all discuss what is a form. Okay? So, we all know what this is now. So, what is this?
Ring.
It's a symbol of the mother. Is it the mother? No. It's a symbol. That's what the world is. It's a symbol of the divine. But through the symbol, Sri Aurobindo is saying it is possible to go to the reality. Others are saying no. Symbol is symbol. It will remain symbol. It will remain only a photograph. A photograph of New York can never be New York.
It creates a link.
Yes. So that's a link. So that's what he is saying. So that's a form. All the forms are unreal. Today it is there and tomorrow it is not there. In fact, unreality and reality also you can define in many ways, okay? When the Mayavadan is saying unreal, he means to say temporary reality. It comes into existence, is real for time being and disappears. So that which is real should remain real forever. So you can have two definitions of reality. Okay, so in fact, there is a chapter, Reality and the Cosmic Illusion, a huge chapter, 40 pages, where he discusses what is reality. Very interesting.
But can you elaborate a little on the importance of form as well? The importance of form and symbol?
If form were not possible, manifestation would be impossible.
Manifestation means form.
Yes.
Isn't it?
No, I'm talking about in terms of symbols, and because a lot of people, they tend to, negate the symbols, directly, reach the divine. But the form has its very important role of the linking to the divine. So.
Yes.
But the thing is this, that the ascetic is saying the form has no importance. So what you are saying is the opposite of what the ascetic is saying. So, okay, what you are saying is interesting, I'll tell you. In one place in the synthesis, Sri Aurobindo says that what does a yogi have? He has got a body, vital and a mind. So, but these are imperfect. So how can you use these imperfect things to go to the highest? He says, but that's the only instruments you have. And you have to use them. So, I usually say that if a farmer doesn't have a tractor, is he not going to till and plow his land? He will use bullocks. So you have a body, mind, life which are forms, which are imperfect, permanently imperfect. Yet you have to use them to climb to the higher. So that's what he's saying. So that's the importance of the form.
And bring the higher to the imperfect.
Yes. And change it.
Right.
So this is what he says in the Synthesis very clearly. He says, we have to start with what we have. We don't have the divine consciousness. We have only a body, we have a life and a mind. Use that and go up. Okay, so the form has got importance in that sense. After all, if I concentrate on the symbol, I can reach the... In fact, I used to wonder about this, okay? When I was a kid, I used to wonder, if I look at a photograph of mother, how is it going to help me? A photograph is something dead, okay? So I might as well look at a pin or even my shoes. I'm putting it very bluntly. That's what the problem is to strike me, okay? Why should I concentrate only on that? Why should I concentrate on the heart? Why can't I concentrate on my toe? So I'm putting it very bluntly. But the thing is that the photograph has got an importance because there's a link. My toe will never give the link.
Actually acknowledging the value of matter.
Yes.
What you are saying now, that rejection of form ultimately comes from rejection of matter.
Yeah.
There is a sonnet of Sri Aurobindo called Form. The first two lines of that are, O worshipper of the formless infinite, reject not form, what dwells in it is he.
Yes.
They do not recognize the presence of that he in the form.
Yeah.
They are, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, the baby with the bath water. So,
Yes.
make a clean sweep.
Right.
And they don't acknowledge the presence of the divine in matter. This is the fundamental difference with Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah. In fact, the first chapter of Life Divine itself, he says in the beginning that our contention is that Isha Upanishad. Okay? What is that first line? Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam. Okay? Isha Vasyamidam. This is the matter, is the clothing of the divine. Okay? So it's a fit instrument. It's a fit clothing for the divine. Next paragraph he says, it is not only a fit clothing, it is itself the divine. So matter is the divine, essentially. Okay?
That word is very important.
Yeah. So again we come back to your idea that the form has got its importance. Okay? So that itself he is stressing. That matter is Brahman. All right? So here is divided mind. He's saying, he's talking of the second level, okay? The spiritual planes of consciousness. If you are there, you are likely to see the physical world as unreal.
Just for the record, nothing else. The Vasyam, na? So he considers the meaning of the clothing.
Yes.
But he doesn't accept it.
Yes.
He accepts the meaning of inhabit.
Yes.
So he translates Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam as all this is for habitation by the Lord.
That's right. But the difference between habitation and clothing is a little subtle.
Yes.
Because after all, the clothes are my habitation right now. I'm in the clothes. So it's a little subtle.
But still the final meaning which he has accepted of Vasyam is inhabit.
Yes. That's true. There's a footnote for it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, all right. So, that's what Srimad is saying. Don't get stuck at the second level, go to the third level. Okay. So, but only a form created by the all-dividing life force which works out the conceptions of an all-dividing mind. We said that we'll discuss first form, then we'll come to this. So, what is happening now? Mind creates life and life creates matter. It is like a collapsible telescope.
Yes.
Okay? Or the other image which I normally give and I enjoy very much is the Russian doll. Okay? There is a Russian doll. The head is detachable. You detach the head and the same doll in a smaller size is inside. Again that one you take out the head and again another small one is there. So this is exactly like that. Mind contains life and matter, but life contains matter. So it is life that creates matter. Science is saying exactly the opposite. Science is saying matter is creating life and mind. Not true. It's the other way around. There is a certain practical truth in what science is saying. Because matter contains all these things in essence, so it is creating. It's like the seed which contains the tree. The seed is creating the tree. But more true would be that the tree has created the seed. So, okay? This is what he's saying. So this is by working out being. This is also very interesting what he's saying, because he's saying conceptions of an all-dividing mind. Okay? So in other words, this idea also he puts in other places in this way. He says, first of all, when you want to create something, you have to go in 3 steps. First, you have a plan of what you want to do. So if I want to build a building, I first I don't go about collecting bricks and workers. No. I make a blueprint. Okay? I make a plan. I give it to an architect and he makes a blueprint. That's a conception. Look at the word, Srimdo. Okay? Conceptions of an all-dividing mind. Second, that conception has to be executed. It has to be made. That making is the supermind's work. The supermind makes the world. Okay? Having made the world, it also governs it. Okay? The house has to be maintained. So this is what the divine is doing. It doesn't like if you create a child, you have to look after the child. Not like in many countries where you create a child and forget about it. He becomes an orphan or he becomes whatever. You are not responsible. No. You have to be a responsible parent. You create the child and maintain him. So that's what the divine is doing. So he is transcendent. He is cosmic, but he is also individual. So he is transcendent. He is planning the thing. It is planned. Then it is executed by the overmind consciousness. Okay? It is built. And then it is maintained. The physical world contains a divine presence. So these are the implications here, but in other places it makes it even clearer. 3 stages. So here he has given only one. He is saying the conceptions of an all-dividing mind. Okay? He has also used the word life force which works out. It works out. Life force is working out. Okay? It is creating. Alright? By working out being, the word being here is substance. Okay? By working out substance into these appearances of the ignorance, inertia and division of matter, and the dividing mind has lost and imprisoned itself in a dungeon of its own building, is bound with chains which it has itself forged. So, there is another way of looking at it. The divine is playing a game. Okay? he says that I will create the opposite of myself and bind myself down, and I will escape from there. This is the play that he has spoken about, the world play. That is what he is doing. And he is doing that through whom? 7.5 billion today, maybe tomorrow it will be 8 billion, okay? So he is doing that through you. He is playing a game with himself. And this game is, if you are playing a video game, or you have, very often you have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. You have easy, you are not satisfied. Oh, this is too easy, I want. So Sri Aurobindo, the divine, creates a maximum difficulty. So he creates the opposite of himself. And putting himself there, he is now climbing out. So he really goes through the sufferings and pain and ignorance and all that, but he is playing a game ultimately. So this is what is the meaning of the universe. Okay, so it's like, I don't know if you have heard of Houdini. Houdini was a magician. He used to handcuff himself, hands and legs, and put himself into a trunk, and that trunk is locked from outside, and the key is thrown away into the sea. The trunk also is thrown into the sea. He escapes from there. That's what the divine is doing. So, and enjoying what he is doing. This enjoyment also is something we have to see. Every time you have a problem and you solve the problem, there is enjoyment. So maximum problem, maximum enjoyment. So this is what he's saying. Okay, we go back to, but so interesting what he's saying here. Mind has lost and imprisoned itself in a dungeon of its own building, is bound by chains which it itself forged. What are these chains? Matter, life and mind. These chains are described by Ramakrishna as iron chains, which is matter, your body, iron chains. Life chains is silver chains. It is slightly better, okay? But still it is chains, it binds you down. And the mind is a golden chain, but it is still chain, it is binding you. It is better than the other two, but these are the three chains that you have to break and you go up. The mind is the gold, the vital is the silver, and the iron is the body. Okay.
So you can associate with the three gunas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. You can think of it in that way. Okay. Then he's saying, and if it be true that the dividing mind is the first principle of creation, again he is using the word dividing mind. He is using the word dividing mind, but he is meaning the second level of consciousness, the spiritual planes of consciousness, where you see the physical world as unreal. Okay. The dividing mind. The dividing mind ranges from the higher mind up to the overmind. You can have the experience of the Mayavada theory in any of these planes of consciousness. Okay, so then is the first principle of creation. Then it must also be the ultimate attainment possible in the creation, because the ultimate is creating. So if you see from the second level of the existence, the spiritual planes of consciousness, you will have to, that's all you can go to. You can't go beyond that. That's a pessimistic theory. So, and the mental being struggling mainly with life and matter, overpowering them only to be overpowered by them. As much as man tries to free himself, okay, if he limits himself to that and does not think that he can go higher, then he will always be subject to body-mind life. Okay. Overpowered by them, repeating eternally a fruitless cycle must be the last and highest word of cosmic existence. This fruitless cycle is death, birth, birth. That's a chain of your samsara. You have to get out of it. That's the Indian idea, that you have to get out of this chain of birth and death. Okay? So, then, now somebody is saying, you go to the third level. Don't get stuck in the second level. But no such consequence ensues. What is this consequence talking about? If you think that the overmind, dividing mind is creating the world, you can't do anything. Okay? But this consequence is avoidable if you go to the third level. If you think that spirit is creating and not the dividing mind, it is spirit that is creating the world. And now, maybe today we don't have enough time, but it is true that the mind is creating in a certain sense. Even at our level, Okay, it's very interesting. We don't think of it that way. But we keep repeating this. Your mind is creating the world for you. Even our mind, our mortal mind is creating the world for me. If my mind is not there, I will not see the world. The senses are collecting data and passing this data through the nerves to the brain, and the physical mind is interpreting what you are seeing. So, the world is nothing but an image in your mind. That's a Buddhistic theory. And it's fact, it's a fact. Because if your senses are not there, the world doesn't exist for you. If the nerves are broken, the world will not exist for you. And if the mind is silent, the world becomes a mirage and an image. So it's interesting that the mind is creating. But there is a certain point, third level you go, you see that mind is not creating the world. It is a spirit that is creating the world. Then your whole view of things changes. It's not anymore, you need not get stuck at the Mayavada theory. Okay, that's what he's saying. But no such consequence ensues if, on the contrary, it is the immortal and infinite spirit that has veiled itself in the dense robe of material substance. Now see, it is robe. Vasyam. Okay. So, the dense robe of material substance, and works there by the supreme creative power of supermind, which is the third level, permitting the divisions of mind and the reign of the lowest or material principle only as initial conditions for a certain evolutionary play of the one in the many. So what is this evolutionary play? It's a game that the divine is playing. That's the Vaishnava theory, the Leela. That's right.
But it is a play with a conclusion.
Yes. You mustn't think that it's a meaningless, endless play without conclusion.
Somehow the idea of meaninglessness has got attached with the Vaishnava idea of Leela. It's just a play.
It's just a play, that's right.
But
yeah.
what for? What purpose?
Yes, exactly.
Sri Aurobindo attaches purpose to this.
Yes. And it discusses this, all the various theories. And Leela also doesn't go to the ultimate solution. Even the Gita doesn't go to the ultimate solution. Gita is saying you can be in the physical world and not be affected by the physical imperfections. You can live in the physical world like the lotus leaf in water. Okay? You can remain in the physical world with a divine consciousness, and you will not be affected by the dirt of the physical world. Lotus leaf in water never gets wet. Okay? So you can live like that. But what about the transformation? Swami is saying that which you are seeing as the negative force in the physical world can also be transformed.
In fact, Mother gives this example. She says, why is Krishna depicted as a child? She gives the answer that he is depicted as a child because he is constantly in progress. And then she uses this wonderful phrase that the play of yesterday will not be the play of tomorrow.
Exactly.
His play will constantly increase in its quality and it will progress.
That's right. So very clear what he's saying. Don't stop at the second level of the super planes of overmind planes of consciousness below that, but go to the supramental, you will see that the whole thing changes. Okay, so on the contrary, it's an immortal and infinite spirit that has veiled itself in the dense robe of material substance and works there by the supreme creative power of supermind. Note that it is the supermind that creates the world. Okay, not the Satchidananda, permitting the divisions of mind and reign of the lowest or material principle only as initial conditions for a certain evolutionary play of the one in the many. Okay, of the one in the many. If, in other words, it is not merely a mental being who is hidden in the forms of the universe, but the infinite being, knowledge, will. So, infinite being, knowledge, will, Satchidananda. Being, Sat. Knowledge, Chit. Will, Shakti, which emerges out of matter, first as life, then as mind, with the rest of it still unrevealed. Okay. Then the emergence of consciousness out of the apparently inconscient, must have another and completed term. The appearance of a supramental spiritual being who shall impose on his mental, vital, bodily workings a higher law than that of the dividing mind is no longer impossible. We can conceive of it. On the contrary, it is the natural and inevitable conclusion of the nature of cosmic existence. We have to admit that there is an evolution, and why should the evolution stop at the mind? It will go to the supermind.
Because supermind is the creator of the
Yes. If you think that the mental plane of consciousness is creating the world, you will be stuck there. But if your conception is that the spirit is creating, Supermind is creating, you can go up to there. So we have done 2 paras, but it's very clear, but his language is a little compressed. So we have to expand the ideas. Then it becomes clear. So we stop here today. Next time we'll start with such a supramental being would. Okay?